Hey, what's up LTT fans? It's Spunkaby here for Leaguetopten, and today I am happy to present the first impressions video for Lulu, Riot's new support champion, and generally another Yordle added to the mix. So 2 Yordles in the last few weeks. That's not bad at all. I enjoy the Yordles. I really appreciate their contributions to the league, and yeah, Lulu being a support Yordle, we don't have any support Yordles yet, and so she's the first. So I've had quite a few games now played with Lulu, and I played her in several different roles. Played her as solo top, as well as of course the obvious support role bottom. And I've got a good idea of what she's good at, and I've got a great idea, I think, of what she's not very good at. So let me go ahead and break it down. So Lulu, being a support champion, she does not have actually any type of heal. Instead, she goes more of the way of Janna, where she uses shields to actually shield allies and then provide CC and backup support for her allies down on the bottom lane, and just in general late game in team fights. So I was trying to find what she was best compared to, and I found that a lot of people were comparing her to Janna, and she seems to me like a cross combination between Janna and Orianna. I saw a lot of people used to play Orianna as a support style role bottom, and I think Riot recognized that, and so they decided to make an Orianna style or slightly styled support champion, but with some of the aspects of Janna, etc. In that she has great CC, she has a shield just like Janna, but she uses kind of far away maneuvers to shield her allies and to provide them extra support, extra movement speed, etc. So when playing Lulu, the question comes to mind: do you play her as a support bottom, or do you play her as a mid? Because she does have AP ratios. And I was playing around, and I found that while you could technically play her as a mid-style champion, the same could be said for playing Janna as a mid-style champion, or to some effect Soraka. I mean, they all have attack damage abilities, they have AP ratios, and they have supportive abilities as well. But the question is, why would you do that? Why would you take that spot away from a different mid, like a Xerath or a Morgana or Cassiopeia? There's so many mid-style AP champions to choose from. Why would you take that spot from them? And the fact is that she only has 2 direct damaging abilities, her Q and her E. And her Q, although it fires 2 beams, only one of the beams actually does damage. And her E, yes, it does damage, but it also works extremely well as a shield. In fact, when you shield someone, it also provides her passive to whoever you shielded. So if you shield yourself, or if you shield an ally, then Pix, your little passive, will actually attack just as quickly as your ally or yourself is attacking. So what I found is, while she could technically go mid, her ultimate is kind of wasted in that it's used on yourself just basically to survive when you're engaging versus the other person mid, or when you're surviving a gank, etc. I found that going top though with her, and kind of going a hybrid AP AD style build, where you actually build up a lot of attack speed, really does take advantage of her passive. And so I was finding that I was able to beat solo top champions, those that didn't have an instant gap closer, quite well. Now I'm not talking about Talon, because Talon does have that instant gap closer, but something like a Garen or an AD Nidalee, people who fight from afar, Lulu's really good at keeping them at bay and keeping them away from you. She really allows them to just kind of get mixed up, and with her combos, she's able to put the hurt on them along with her auto attacks. And this fact, the more attack speed you build, then the more harassment you can get in within a combo. So if you polymorph them, slow them, etc., you can get off quite a few amount of auto attacks and use that passive to the fullest and actually do pretty decent damage. Now I did find that that build kind of did scale off a late game, it dropped off. It wasn't as really good as a direct AD bottom like Ashe or Graves or Caitlyn, etc. But it was a fun build to play, and it was certainly not an unviable build. I did find it though more of a viable build rather than a mid Lulu, mid AP Lulu rather, straight AP. But again, her best build I felt was going down bottom. Now some people would argue that Sona or Soraka would be better choices, and even to some extent Taric, and this may be true in some cases. I mean, Lulu does not have a heal, but she has a heal in the fact that her E provides a shield and her R provides a ridiculous shield. The base amount of that at high ranks, at rank 3, is 600 to 800 HP, which is ridiculous. That is so much HP. incredible. And the fact is that she doesn't need a lot of AP in order to be super viable or useful late game. In fact, most supports, you don't see them buy a lot of AP rather. You see them buy the typical aura items. And I found with on Lulu, when I bought those aura items, I was still just as effective and useful in team fights. People need to realize that every champion in League of Legends doesn't have to have a ton of damage. That is not every person's role. You know, there are singular damaging abilities that these champions might have, but they don't need to have that much damage. When you think of Soraka, you don't think of Soraka as having huge amounts of damage. She has some damaging abilities, but that is not what she's known for. And I think people need to realize Lulu is going to be known as that champion who can just tie people up, slow them down, and then knock them up with a really cool ultimate. Her ultimate, I feel, is extremely strong for a support ultimate, in that if you use that on people like a Mumu, Malphite, Morgana, champions who get directly in the middle of a team fight who have a great opener, you essentially can tie people up for 2, 3, 4 seconds. I loved using it on Morgana, who would flash in an ultimate because it would slow them and then knock them up the air, ensuring that Morgana's ultimate would go off. I loved using it on Malphite because Malphite would jump in, bump them up in the air, and I would time it and wait for them to come back down. The minute they would come back down, I'd bump them up again. I even used it on Jax, etc. Any champion that would come out of the jungle to gank, I would love using it on them, not to only just save them in case it got in trouble, but to also provide extra support in that gank. And it just really made it that much of a strong ability. On top of that, you can of course use it as a defensive ability to shield your AD carry in case they get jumped on, providing with a huge shield knockup and an ability to get away, flash, etc. As well as just shielding yourself, of course, and whoever needs that support. So I really felt that that was a really strong ultimate, and I feel it was almost wasted if you went an AP route. Yes, it would give you more of a shield, but I feel like, you know, leave the AP mid to someone else. So how does she stack up? You know, how does she actually stack up versus other supports? I think she stacks up pretty well. She's essentially unique. You know, she kind of has a stun in that, you know, you can polymorph people. Yes, they can move around, but they can't move around too much. And I found that it was a great way to bait people in, because I would have like a Skarner or someone try to come in and try to ulti one of my teammates. I would essentially polymorph them, and then we could focus them down instantly. They couldn't really do much, couldn't move around. It's essentially a stun by all means. It's much better than a slow because they can't use any of their abilities, and they're almost silenced in an effect. I found that I would push my E and W up to max ranks early. I'd only get 1 Q at like level 3 or so. I'd use that a little bit for harassment, but mostly just to slow enemies and keep them at bay for ganks. But having the polymorph and having the shield or the reveal is extremely useful. I found I was using the shield more than I was using the reveal damage portion of it. In fact, the only time I would use the damage portion of it is if I polymorphed them and I knew it wasn't going to be a threat to my ally to shield them, so I can instead contribute to the damage of the enemy to actually kill them. But in fact, I think the damage that comes from picks is underrated when you place it on someone who has a high attack speed, because that's a lot of damage. In fact, going back to really quickly the top lane that I played with Lulu, I found that if I got like a Malady or any kind of item that reduced the enemy's magic resistance, your passive in fact does more damage. Of course, the passive has a flat amount of damage it does, but with any type of magic resistance, it actually reduces that the amount of magic resistance the enemy has, making your passive that much more effective. So I really felt her passive is quite strong. In fact, it's really strong when you place it on someone who has gained a lot of attack speed, and they can just really rip someone a new one. One thing you do need to watch out for, though, is when you place it on an ally who is farming creeps in the bottom lane, if they mistime their auto attack and they do not get the last hit on a minion, if it is very weak, your Pix passive, if you shielded them, will actually take the last hit, so it'll attack them afterwards, and you'll end up taking the last hit from the your supported ally, whoever you're supporting, your AD range. So you do need to watch out for that and just make sure that you don't take too many of those. You know, 1 or 2 is not too bad, but just make sure you're not shielding them all the time. Her mana costs, I feel, are very good. She can't really spam, but I feel like she can burst use her abilities. You know, chain them a couple times before she runs out of mana. So while she's not someone that I would just spam my abilities on all the time, I would definitely use them at least in combination twice during a team fight or during a skirmish and not have to worry about mana. Now, I found that going like Flash and Heal is a very good combo on her. With Lulu, she excels at keeping people away from her, but she doesn't excel when people are super close, because if she does poly them, or if she does actually Q them, and they're still able to stick to her, like for example, if a Garen uses his Q on her and silences her, and by the time she actually gets out of the silence to polymorph him, he's done a lot of damage to her with Spin to Win. And Spin to Win, if already activated, if you poly him, will still be active, so you actually don't mitigate that damage. And then you're forced to either waste your ultimate on yourself or just die. And I found that, you know, keeping people at bay from far away with her abilities is what she's best at. So Flash is really good to have underneath your belt, just to make sure that you keep that distance from the enemy champions. She's really good at kiting, but the minute someone gets close and she doesn't have any abilities to really spend and no combos to use, she's in a bad spot. So early game items with Lulu, what I found to be the best was going in early Philosopher's Stone, a Heart of Gold, boots, level 1 boots, and then of course the main item, the best item of any support could get would be wards. Either vision wards or sight wards. You want a combination of those, even maybe an early Oracle if you're doing extremely well. Those for any support champion, I don't care what they do in bottom lane, I don't care if they heal or if they're an aggressive support, those should be the main items that you should always get. You should always have those wards, maybe an early Oracle if you feel like you're in a comfortable enough position where you won't die early to actually clear out the enemy's wards. I can't stress enough how important those are. As you transition to late game, you should upgrade the Philosopher's Stone to a Shurelya's Reverie, and Aegis of Legion is also a really great choice. You want to kind of go slightly an aura build with Lulu, much like you would Taric. I definitely would recommend going to Merc Treads, not cooldown boots. I felt Merc Treads would be a better choice. I felt like her cooldowns were already pretty good enough to where having an extra shaved, 0.5 seconds off or whatever, wouldn't that make that big of a deal. A Will of the Ancients, I feel, is actually a really good choice on her, because if nobody else on your team is going a Will of Ancients allows you to kind of passively heal and have that sort of heal built into yourself, so where you can heal off your own abilities that you use against the enemies, as well as providing the other AP on your team a way to heal as well. So it's kind of providing a non-direct way to heal your allied champions, besides of course the heal itself that you have from your summoner spells. Now after that, of course, you still have more wards. You should always have a slot available for wards. And then lastly, it's kind of up to you. I like going like a Zeke's Herald. That's a decent item choice if you have people who really can benefit from the attack speed and the lifesteal. Again, going that attack speed just again helps your passive that much more, both for your allies and for yourself. Zeke's Herald rather doesn't help yourself, but it actually does give you that extra HP and cooldown reduction, which is always useful for support. So I find that with this type of build, Lulu has a lot of tankiness, like 2600 HP, has a lot of armor, some good magic resistance, has ways to escape both from Shurelya's Reverie as well as her own abilities, and she can really provide that support and not have to worry about dying as much. I didn't die very much as Lulu when the team fights were even. I found that I was able to kite effectively, and with proper use of my spells and proper help with my allies, I was able to support them without worrying about getting focused too hard, just because I can tie them up, I can polymorph anybody going directly for me, etc. Now, one thing is, if someone else does get a wood on your team, you can go something like a Randuin's Omen. However, I don't really recommend it too much. It is good for the cooldown reduction, but the simple fact is that you usually want to have a Randuin's Omen if you're in the midst of a team fight, in the middle of enemy champions, because then you can slow everybody around you. Having a Randuin's Omen on the outer edge of a team fight isn't very useful. You might have 1 or 2 people around you, but you will usually want to pop it right in the midst of everyone to slow everyone in an AoE. And so, yes, it could be a good option or choice if you want to make sure to keep someone off of you, but generally speaking, you want to use it when you're in the midst of everyone, and Lulu does not want to be in the midst of everyone. So water if possible. If not, then you can go for Randuin's Omen. Overall, guys, I felt that Lulu is a great support champion. She offers something new. Not every support champion has to have a heal, and not every support champion that doesn't have a heal is bad. You know, you have very aggressive support champions who don't have heals. You have like Leona, etc., that do pretty well, and I feel like Lulu is in a good spot. She may actually be somewhat overpowered just because of her combos being so strong. You know, you can tie up people for so long with her ultimate, her slow, and then her polymorph, along with the fact that you can shield whoever they're attacking. Just really provide a lot of support for an ally champion, and you can heal bait them with that ultimate and a heal, no problem. I have to say, if you enjoy playing support champions and you don't mind not doing a lot of damage, but rather supporting from afar and just tying people up and CCing and all that kind of stuff, Lulu, I almost said Leona, Lulu is the champion for you. I enjoyed her. I found her to be a semi-aggressive support during the heated battle, while also having passive support abilities during just farming lanes, etc. like that. You know, she has a nice mix of the two, and I for one enjoy this new Yordle support champion. Let me know what you guys think of Lulu down below in the comments, guys. As always, this has been Spunkify. I've been sick lately, sorry I haven't been around. I'll see you guys later. Spunkify out.
Victory!